Hello, I'm Kimberly, and welcome to the weekend edition of the Nave News Update. It's Friday, September 4th. Many of the stories you hear here can be found at IndianCountryTV.com. And here's the news for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. President Obama visited a fishing operation in local school in Dillingham, Alaska on September 2nd as part of promoting the importance of environmental protection. Dillingham, which sits on an inlet off the Bering Sea, is the fishing hub for Bristol Bay, a world-renowned salmon fishery. Obama's visit to the town of fewer than 3,000 people briefly placed him at the center of a conflict between fishermen and developers who want to build a gold and copper mine called Pebble Mine. Although the company seeking to build the mine hasn't yet submitted any formal proposal, Obama's Environmental Protection Agency has taken the unusual step of preemptively blocking it out of concern it would harm the salmon population. From there, the president went to Kotzebue, Alaska, making history being the first sitting U.S. president to visit a community north of the Arctic Circle. There, Obama delivered a speech laying out new federal efforts to help these communities cope with coastal erosion and high energy costs, and in some extreme cases, relocate altogether. The president announced that the Denali Commission would oversee short and long-term programs to safeguard and repair the coastal villages, and was committing $2 million to such initiatives, including voluntary relocation efforts where appropriate. In other news, the federal government on August 31st gave Royal Dutch Shell the final permit it needs to drill for oil in the Arctic Ocean off Alaska's northwest coast for the first time in more than 2 decades. The Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement announced that it approved the permit to drill below the ocean floor after the oil giant brought in a required piece of equipment to stop a possible well blowout. The agency previously allowed Shell to begin drilling only the top sections of 2 wells in the Chukchi Sea because the key equipment called a capping stack was stuck on a vessel that needed repair in Portland, Oregon. Because the vessel arrived last week, Shell is free to drill into oil-bearing rock estimated at 8,000 feet below the ocean floor for the first time since at least exploratory wells were drilled in 1991. Environmental groups oppose Arctic offshore drilling, saying industrial activity will harm polar bears, Pacific walrus, ice seals, and threaten whales already vulnerable from climate warming and shrinking summer sea ice. They say oil companies have not demonstrated that they can clean up a spill in water choked by ice. Sierra Club Executive Director Michael Brune said in a statement that President Obama's decision to grant Shell the final drilling permits goes against science, the will of the people, and common sense. It has been a little more than a year since the bodies of 2 homeless Native Americans were found in the Albuquerque, New Mexico lot. When 3 teens were arrested and charged with the beating deaths, the crime shocked New Mexico. Shortly after, Mayor Richard Berry met with Native American leaders and organized the task force, which focused on homelessness within the Native American population. The task force released its recommendations, but it said trust must be restored. Agencies that interact with the homeless will be learning more about Native culture and history. The final recommendations include building local and state partnerships and including homelessness in the New Mexico Hate Crimes Act. Another key recommendation put forth by the task force is to increase public housing specifically for Native Americans on the verge of homelessness. As for the 3 charged with murder, they could possibly be tried as adults. If convicted, they could face up to life in prison. Their trial is set to begin this fall. A federal grant of nearly $450,000 will help the University of South Dakota Sanford School of Medicine provide career and academic mentoring to high school students on 2 of the state's Native American reservations. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services funding will help the medical school assist students at Red Cloud High School on the Pine Ridge Reservation and Wagner Community School on the Yankton Reservation. The program helps identify, mentor, and encourage young Native American students to pursue careers in the healthcare. It begins this year and will continue into 2020. Ashley Callingbull from the Enoch Cree Nation in Alberta, Canada, became the first Canadian and First Nations woman to ever win the Mrs. Universe pageant, which honors the beauty and accomplishments of married women. Callingbull is a dancer, model, actress, and former Miss Canada who currently stars in the Aboriginal Peoples television network show Blackstone. This year's Mrs. Universe pageant focused on how domestic violence hurts women and children. During the pageant's national outfit parade, Callingbull wore a traditional jingle dress, and for her talent, she sang a traditional Cree song while wearing a white buckskin dress. After being crowned, Callingbull spoke candidly with CBC about the challenges she has faced as a Native woman. While on Twitter, she said she continues to use the spotlight to shed light on Canada's national crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women as well. And she has also urged First Nation citizens to get out and vote in the upcoming Canadian national elections this October. And that's another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. I'd like to thank you for joining me and have a grand day.